we are at a critical crossroads right now, and we're beginning to have some transitions to take place within the city. And I think that this would be an ideal opportunity for some fresh leadership to come into the CRA, and we want to be able to move this CRA forward as expeditiously as possible. The Assistant City Manager can provide some words.
Good afternoon, Board of the CRA, Commissioners, and members of the committee. My name is George Ellis. I'm Assistant City Manager. This move was made by the City Manager in the effort to provide opportunity for Mr. Delaney, who has shown great promise in his leadership and concerns and wellness for the CRA, along with trying to expand our current director or CRA manager a position to work within building and licensing and zoning and community development. We'll try the change is in an effort to make sure that we can have a person that can spend more time with the CRA. Currently, the CRA staff only spends 10% of their time with CRA, and the rest of their time they spend with community development and zoning. So in the effort to expand that, we thought Mr. Delaney, at least the manager did, his promotion to and recommendation to the position of CRA manager would be best fitted at this particular time. Hopefully that will answer your question, I think, in relationship to why that movement was made. Was the question?
And I would like to add as well, this is an interim position, correct. Board Member Paget. And I've had several meetings with Mr. Delane as well as with the Assistant City Manager, and I've spoken to the City Manager. And I think the interest that Mr. Delane has shown, and if the City Manager or Director would like for him, he could also come up and speak as well. The interest that he have shown in the CRA, I think at this time that I agree with the City Manager that it will be moved forward for us as a board, and 50% of his time will be spent on CRA duties. So we've been looking to expand. We said that the current way the board was structured, there was not enough time given to CRA projects. And as you all know, we have a lot of projects that we're looking at. If you look at our budget, we have a very aggressive budget going into next year. So I think that we do need more time. So I spoke with the manager and told him that I do agree with the move. And
also, if you don't mind, Madam Chair,
yes,
is that this is a transition. This process is a transition. We got fees at 50% now. Our ultimate goal is that one day the CRA could be 100% staff. With 100%, with the director and all of the staff spend 100% of their time with the CRA. Our budget director has emphasized that over the next year, we should have an increase in funding for the CRA. And hopefully by next year, we'll have enough funding to do just that. So this is a part of the transition. This is why Mr. Delaney has been put in an interim position so that all of the choices that we made in the future were made through your board and through his and with his position as the manager of the CRA.
Yes.
Any further questions?
So we're anticipating this interim position to be 1 year, and then within that year, we will have a full executive director come on.
That is right now our plan, that within a year we'll be able to do so. I think this is something that working with Mr. Delaney along with the board, this is something that you all will have to make a determination on. I think that the budget director has emphasized that we will have a much healthier pot of money for the CRA as we move forward. So as you look at your funding and you look at your staff, you look at the goals and strategic plan that you have for the CRA in the future, I think over the next year, you should be able to establish exactly what you want. If you don't mind, I would like for Mr. Delaney to maybe come up and introduce himself to you all and say, yes, ma'am.
Chairwoman Russell, I do have one question for Mr. Ellis.
Yes, ma'am.
Before Board Member Paget, did you?
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Board Member Williams.
If the previous CRA directors, the issue was being split between CRA and community development, and that wasn't a 50-50 split, or maybe it was, how then does this now, doesn't this create the same issue that was previously stated if it's a 50-50 split between CRA and community development? And why can't he just start full-time?
Good question. Really, Mr. Gay was at 10%. His entire staff was at 10% for ever since they've been a part of the CRA. So that was, that was a deficiency. So now we start at 50%. Like I said, with Mr. Delaney working with you all as a board, if you see fit that it should be increased as our funding looks like it's more robust, then those decisions could be made within the process of the next year. And I believe that, like I said, our goal is for you having a staff that's entirely 100% committed to the CRA.
So the 10% is basically funding, not
10% is the time.
10%
of
the time.
Workload is based on salary and workload. That was in the past. Now you have Mr. Laney, we're bringing him on at 50-50. We're probably gonna be looking on at doing the administrative assistant also at the same workload. Maybe not now at this particular junction, but within the very near future as we look at his workload, because we know that workload, that those particular administrative assistant positions, secretary positions, there's a lot of workload between the CRA, zoning and community development.
No, I understand. I just want to make sure that we're setting Mr. Delane up for success. If the argument the last time was it was difficult to juggle both, seems to me that the same argument is also being placed on his lap. But I'm just, again, if we're going to step out and create an interim assignment, I just want to make sure that he's successful at it.
I believe that at this particular, I hear you, and we are working toward that. Thank you, Mr. Delaney.
Okay, if
Madam
Mr.
Chair.
Delaney can come up and introduce himself and.
Good afternoon, board, chairwoman. I'll say that first off, I'm very thankful to be considered for the position. This is something I've had passion for since I started working in this city. Growing up in this city, as a youth, I've always seen the challenges that were presented. And, coming back, this is something that I want to be able to help alleviate a lot of the issues. So, a lot of the concerns that the board has are concerns that are equally aligned with mine. Since I've come in, I've had ideas and innovative thought processes of what can the CRA accomplish and what are the timelines to get those done. Now being in this position to, have more of a say, that's exactly what I intend to do. And I intend to work intently with the board to make sure we achieve those goals in a expedited timeline to make sure that we get what we desire out of the CRA.
One board members, one concern that I did have, and I spoke to Mr. Delane, is that that he documents his time that he spends with the CRA and things that he's working on. And for the last maybe 2 weeks or so, he's been sending me updates of things that he's been working on and trying to accomplish. I think that this will be a good fit for us now. Not to say that Mr. Gay wasn't doing a good job, but I think with the direction that the city is moving in, I think that the time that Mr. Delane will be spending with the CRA will be well spent. And he has assured me that he will be working on the concerns of the board and that he will be meeting with board members. I think you did that this past week.
Yes, I started, but I wasn't able to complete. But I will continue to meet with board members moving forward.
Yes, so that he can also get your concerns and what you think are priorities that we could work towards. So, any other questions? No other questions? Like to acknowledge that board member Taylor has joined us. You have any questions for Mr. Delane? We're bringing him on as interim CRA manager, 50% of his time will be spent on CRA responsibilities. Okay. Okay. Nothing else, Madam Clerk?
Board Member Titus,
Yes.
Board Member Williams,
Yes.
Board Member Pygott,
Yes.
Board Member Taylor,
Yes.
Chair Russell.
Yes,
Motion passes 5-0.
we welcome you.
Madam Chair, let me just say in my departure that it's been a pleasure working with you all and basically bringing this CRA in back to where it can be operational. It's good to see this transition begin to take place. This was one of the things that I talked about from the very beginning, that we needed to stabilize the CRA and put it into a position where we can create this transition. I wholeheartedly support this particular transition that takes place. And even though you may not see me necessarily, we're still working in the background. Planning and community development is still going to be the background support to the CRA. So we're still going to be devoting some of our time to the efforts of the CRA. That's something that's not going to change. And we look forward to moving the CRA forward. We see great opportunities coming down the road. And I thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve you.
Thank you, Mr. Gay. We appreciate it. We know that sometimes we've been very hard on you and you've stood the test. Mr. Delane. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Don't leave. Don't leave. You can say- No. Okay, we're going to move to the next resolution.
A resolution of the Board of the Opa-locka Community Redevelopment Agency, OCRA, approving the waiver of potential late fees and interest associated with the City of Opa-locka not timely depositing tax incremental revenue in a prior year, providing for incorporation of recitals, providing for an effective date.
Someone move it, please.
Move it.
Moved by Board Member Taylor,
Second.
second by Board Member Williams. Discussion? Yes, Board Member Titus.
Does this adversely affect the budget in any way? The CRA budget?
Mr. Delane, can you answer that question? She wants to know, does this, giving this waiver for the late fees and interest, does it affect our budget? In what way does it impact our budget?
In regards to that, I would like to defer it to our budget administrator, who can elaborate on the correlation between the fee waiver and how it affect our budget. Mr. Andrew?
And board members, if you look in your documents, our clerk was out, and in putting the packages together, we had asked that they put page numbers. So they are not really numbered, but if you go behind the bylaws, behind the resolution for the bylaws, you'll see the resolution, and behind the resolution, you'll see email from Mr. Anthony that talks about how much money it is. Everyone has it? You see it for me?
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I just have a question for clarification on the agenda. It has a different item from the backup. So we're going by what's listed on the agenda, correct? As H2? For H2 in the packet, I have the bylaws.
I believe we're going by what the agenda is saying, and the H2 mix up with, and the documentation is just, it's just been switched.
Excuse
It's
me,
just in a
did
different order.
Okay,
you all, you got it?
yeah, so we're
Okay.
going by what's listed on the actual agenda.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. Sorry for the mix up. The clerk, our clerk has been out for a couple of weeks, I think, so. Been having to fill in. So everyone has that page? Okay, Mr. Anthony, can you help us out?
Hi, good evening, Bob Anathan, Board, Chair Lady. To answer the question directly, the item talks about a waiver of penalty and interest. In the tentative budget that's been developed, there is no assumption of receiving that income. The tentative budget for next year reflects $3 million available to spend as you see fit, and it has no reliance on any of this penalty or interest income.
Did you understand, Board Member Titus? Your mic was a little muffled.
I'm sorry, that was maybe me who was muffled. I apologize. No, if it was not clear, there is a proposed budget that I think you're looking at this evening.
Yes.
And that budget makes no assumption about the CRA receiving any of the penalty or the interest. The budget by itself says that you have $3 million to spend.
Okay. Board Member Titus, what he's saying that the budget that we have in our packet does not reflect this money because they're trying, it's not a part of the budget because it's not inclusive because they don't want to, they didn't include it because they are hoping that we will waive it. So they didn't put it in. And the amount of the penalty is $76,874, and the interest is $113,389. So they're asking us to waive that. And since last year, all monies have been deposited into the bank account timely.
Yes, ma'am. If that's a question, the full amount was deposited, I think, on December 10th in advance of the requirement, December 31st. But just so you're not misled, I did analysis, and based on an estimate for FY20 and FY21, I think that at the end of the day, the city will still put another $200,000 into the CRA bank account. The amount will be determined at such time that the FY20 and the FY21 audits are complete.
So, to the chair,
Yes, sir.
if the city's gonna put the 200, why can't they pay the 190?
I didn't get the question.
If the city's gonna put the 200, why are we proposing that we waive the 190, the 190,000?
Because I think the 200,000 is money that, well, you go ahead, you answer, Ms. Anthony.
Yeah, let me try and see if I can.
Because the way
hopefully-
you said, like, you're giving us 200,000, so it was a different.
What has occurred for the last 8-9 years, and I hope I don't bore you with the history on it. City has been regularly paying all the CRA bills. There are two models for doing this. One model is for the for the city to put the TIF money, tax increment financing money, into the CRA bank account by December 31st each year, and then draw the money out as they pay the bills. The other model is a more expedient one, is they just hold on to the TIF money, pay the CRA bills out of that money, and then periodically where the surplus, put that into the CRA bank account. Long story short, both ways get you to the same endpoint. The CRA has experienced zero financial damage by the way the city has chosen to do it up to last December. The city now understands it's a state requirement. It's less state requirement. It's less expedient to do that way, but to be in compliance with the state statute, the city will do that going forward. The point I was making before about the $200,000 is there's still a certain amount of truing up that has to be done, because when I did the estimate that came up with the $200,000 still to be paid, I did it on the estimate that the CRA was going to spend $200,000 in 2020 and then $200,000 in 2021. If all that materializes, then the city would not have paid all of the expenses that would lead to taking care of all the money they were holding. It's not a question of the city withholding it. They just need to make sure that they fully understand what the CRA truly has spent in 20 and 21. At that point, it'll true up, and that's really not related to the penalty and the interest in total of approximately $190,000. I don't know if that clarifies.
No, you clarified.
Okay, perfect.
The way you made it seem as if you were giving us 200. That's why you said don't worry, because we're still going to give you the 200,000. The wording was confusing.
Giving was a bad verb.
Yeah.
When the dust settles, the city will recognize it owes X dollars, and at that time it will be put into the CRA account, and then it will be trued up. And from there on out, the city will be in full compliance with the state statute.
Will be caught up as,
and you'll see the payments coming out of the CRA bank account on a periodic basis to cover the bills the city's paying.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? You have anything you want to add, Mr. Director?
I would just like to comment that this is something that is recommended by the state that we have in our coffers for opportunities moving forward if such issues arise where there is potential fees that are incurred for being late on payments from the city. So this is just pretty much standard procedures to make sure that we have this language within our in our code. So yeah.
Okay. And Mr. Anthony, we're waiving, this waiver is for the previous years that the money was not deposited. This is not a blanket resolution to remove waivers if, say, for instance, if the city does not deposit the money in this year, that this resolution will cover that also. This is only previous years because I don't see the years in the resolution. So I want to make sure it's not a blanket resolution. You understand what?
Yes, ma'am. No, it is not a blanket resolution. I mean, the city has understood now what is required, and I can promise you it's on their calendars to make sure. But the answer to your question is no, it's retroactive. It's not prospective.
Okay. All right, so board members, you all understand that we will be forgiving the city of about $200,000 in fees, and it does not, Mr. Anthony is telling us that it does not impact our budget. It's just that we didn't have it, and we won't, if we forgive the city for it, they won't have to pay it to us. But Board Member Taylor, they will be putting that money that they had not deposited into our account. They will be putting those dollars into the account. Okay? All right, everybody's clear? Roll call, please.
Board Member Taylor,
Yes.
Board Member Titus,
Yes.
Board Member Williams,
Yes.
Board Member Pygott,
Yes.
Chair Russell.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Mr. Anthony, y'all make sure y'all remember us now when the CRA come to the city. Remember that we were good.
It's indelible in my mind, ma'am. I promise you.
Don't get deaf-toned. Okay. Next resolution, please.
A resolution of the Board of the Opa-locka Community Redevelopment Agency, OCRA, authorizing forgiveness of 33.3% payment for improvement to business for an applicant of the Facade Improvement Program, providing for incorporation of recitals, providing for an effective date.
Mr. Director, first of all, can we get someone to move it? Moved by Board Member Taylor,
Second. Second.
Second by Board Member Titus. Discussion? I have a question. Is there anyone here from Opa-locka CDC, or is the person that's requesting this forgiveness, are they here?
I contacted them earlier today. They advised me that they will not be here. This is both the CDC and the applicant.
He said that they advised him that they would not be here, and the CDC said that they would not be here. Well, my concern is that if they are asking for us to waive, to forgive them of their portion of the money that they're supposed to put into the facade program that we're giving to them to better their business, they should have made an effort to be here. And when you read the documentation, their response was, let me get it so I can read it properly. Yes, their response was, I am seeking approval for the non-financial match as I have met 2 of the conditions. Qualification and funding of the federal PPP program. I don't know what that has to do with us as a CRA board. And that they have less employment of less than 10 employees. I think that they should have given a better explanation. You know, maybe they were closed for COVID. You know, maybe they lost money during the COVID. That's the only explanation they gave. So for me, that's not enough for us to, and how much will we be forgiven for them? What was their total amount that they requested?
Their total amount was $20,138, so it'd be 33% of that.
Okay, that they were supposed to come up with.
That is correct.
Wow. If you want to defer it, if the board wants to vote on it, it's up to the board. But for me, I can't support that. Because I think they should have been here to make a presentation for themselves. Because you're just leaving it up to us to, those are very, very vague explanations. I need to hear from the board.
Chairwoman Russell,
Yes.
haven't we approved other businesses before? Or this is the first one? I remember this came around, but it was under, I believe, a grant or something where so that this is outside of that. This is just an independent business owner. Mhm.
Through the chair, the previous applicant actually had a written letter, and the program managers with the OLCDC were actually here to give an explanation behind why the waivers match. And actually, the applicant was out and in detail their letter that they had a extenuating circumstance. We didn't get such explanation for this particular applicant.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it was outside of that. This is just, I just want to make sure that we're not basing the decisions. I do agree, but it does sound a little subjective. I think that we need to make sure if we're going to say that, for the record, if we're not going to vote or move forward on someone asking, then they must X, Y, and Z, and not just, the explanation for us not moving forward just sounds a little subjective in terms of making sure that they're here, making sure they give us more information and what information needs to be in the documentation. I think moving forward, we need to just make sure it's clear, because right now it's just a little unclear as to why we're moving forward. I do agree, but it needs to be on paper. Thank you.
Again, to the chair. So within the criteria, this is why the procedures manual was included in this. Under the non-match criteria, it distinctly states that you have to give an explanation behind your rationale and explanation behind why you need the waiver. So now that that's no longer the case, that pretty much, you know, ties into the decision that the board has at this current juncture.
And also to your point, Board Member Williams, I think it was Board Member Paget that the last time around when we had the other applicant that came before us, asked the question, would we allow others to do? Because we didn't want to set a precedent that you could just come and we would just say, yes, you don't have to meet the match, because then that defeats the purpose of the program. And we know that we went through COVID and some businesses had problems. But my concern also is that Opa-locka CDC was here the last time around, you know, because they knew the circumstances of the business that was asking for it. So it would be up to you, Mr. Director, if you want to pull this item and get back with them again and ask them to come before us and give an explanation. I think to Board Member Williams' point, that would be more than fair. I think that would be more than fair if we gave them another opportunity to come. If you all don't want to just vote it up or vote it down. But I don't think that we should just give forgiveness, because we are defeating the purpose of the program. The businesses are supposed to put something in. So if all of the businesses feel that they can just come and say, because of COVID, I can't meet my criteria. And we know that there was a lot of money going around for businesses to take advantage of during that time. So I think that they should come before us and let us know why they're asking, rather than that explanation that they gave.
Chairwoman Russell?
Yes.
I wholeheartedly agree. And I do think that we should not start a precedent tonight. And I'm willing actually to vote on it, but I don't want to start a precedent where this becomes something that we do and everyone else thinks that this, you know, every meeting they want to do the same exact thing. So I don't want to start that precedent. So moving forward, I was just only responding to the explanation that was given. I just wanted to make sure that, you know, we're not saying that you must be here.
Yes.
No, we're not saying that part. I'm okay with actually voting on the item. Unless you don't want to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just a brief.
Excuse me, Board Member.
Chairwoman. Also, I would like to see in these packets, what are we actually approving? So if they're going to be doing some type of improvements, what is that improvement?
Yes.
What does it look like? What is the picture of the current establishment? What are we going to see moving forward? This doesn't provide any of that information. And as you said, Chairwoman, doesn't provide enough information. We don't have the participants here to tell us enough information. So at the moment, I can't support this item because of the lack of information that we have regarding this. Thank you.
And I think that we really need to have before and after pictures, because that would show us what the business looked like before and did they really do any improvements? Because we need to see the improvements. That's why for me, signage was so important. And I looked at this, rode by and I looked at this business, but there's not anything to show me that, you know, they've done any improvements, because I don't know what it was before. So what do you think, Mr. Director?
I would like to have a discussion on the item at a later date. I know that we have a criteria set in place. And I'll elaborate on the other projects when we come to the update for the facade improvement program. However, the criteria was clearly stated within the packet. It was clearly stated in the procedures manual. The applicant was well aware when he signed the contract that if they were to go for the waiver, that they would have to explain and elaborate on what those alterations are. The OLCDC clearly stated that as well when they spoke with the applicant. So it is in my opinion that the board has well within their power and decision-making ability based off the information that was provided or lack thereof. And it's to the board's wishes, whatever they'd like to do with the item at hand.
Board Member Taylor.
To the chair, to the director, I'm sorry. I do kind of agree with my colleague. I would like to see what they're going to actually do, what their plan is. Is that something that they can provide?
Well, I think he's going to give a report. He's going to give a report tonight, and this applicant is a part of that report.
Of actually what it's going to look like, what the facade program, what are we paying for? In other words.
I will have the report. However, the intent was to have the OLCDC here to actually present. They would have images of before and after photos. I haven't received those, to include in this packet. All I have is the narrative, which is in our update for the facade improvement program. So that's where we're at this time.
Well, you want to pull it, or you want us to, I want you to give us some direction. You're the director, you've been working with Opa-locka CDC. We don't want to kill the applicant, but we also want to make sure that we stick to criteria, that people don't think that they could just, get a waiver or get a forgiveness just because we gave it to somebody else or for that reason. So do you want to pull it next time? Give them another chance? What do you suggest to us?
In honoring the procedures that were clearly stated in the packet and in the application, I feel that the board is well within its power to make a decision tonight.
Roll call.
Board Member Pygott,
No.
Board Member Taylor,
No.
Board Member Titus,
No.
Board Member Williams,
No.
Chair Russell,
No.
motion fails.
Okay. Resolution 4-8, H4.
A resolution of the Board of the City of Opa-locka Community Redevelopment Agency, OCRA, approving the bylaws of the agency as amended herein, providing for incorporation of recitals, providing for an effective date.
Need someone to move it, please.
Move it.
Moved by Board Member Taylor,
Second.
second by Board Member Williams. Discussion?
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
may I do have a question with regards to the bylaws. Can I pass a document out to the board members?
Yes.
So I provided a copy of CRA Resolution 2017-03, which was adopted by the board on September 20th, 2017. And if you look at section 2 of the resolution, It reads, CRA Board amends the CRA bylaws and removes the city clerk as the CRA Board Secretary and assigns planning and community development staff as the secretary of the CRA board. However, in reviewing the bylaws, it still has the city clerk listed in that document. Basically, I just wanted to know if that correction can be made at some point.
Yes,
Chairwoman
Board
Russell?
Member Paget.
I would like to make an amendment to the CRA bylaws that we have in this packet to remove the city clerk as a CRA board secretary and assign, have the executive director assign a member, someone for the CRA board.
Madam Attorney, did you hear the amendment?
I did. I would recommend that we say pursuant to Resolution 2017-03, just to keep it clean.
Excuse me, I didn't hear the end of it.
I was saying to reference also Resolution 2017-03, just to make sure that everything that was included in that resolution is also incorporated.
Yes.
So I'm actually making a change from the actual resolution. The resolution says it assigns someone from planning and community development as staff secretary. Since we are moving to a point where we are going to have a fully operational, separate CRA entity, hopefully within the next year, I think it's important that the executive director has an opportunity to assign a board secretary that can assist in the minutes and the development of all those things. So not making the city, someone from the city specifically responsible for the CRA and our bylaws, but making it an option of the CRA executive director. So that's why I would like to amend section 2.5, Article 2, section 2.5 of the bylaws, and that the executive director shall appoint a secretary to serve as a CRA secretary.
Okay, so your amendment is saying that you would like for the executive director of the CRA, which is the city manager for the city, to appoint a secretary to for the board.
Yes, the executive director. I wouldn't put city manager because in these bylaws.
It says executive director.
Exactly, executive director. So right now, because of the past, we currently have our manager serving as the CRA board. But however, it is us as a CRA that appoints that CRA director. That's what these bylaws say. So we appointed the manager as a CRA director, and he has appointed someone to serve in his role. But for the purpose of this bylaws, I would like it to be clear that the executive director will appoint a secretary.
So the language needs to say executive director appoints secretary,
The CRA
clerk
secretary.
for the board.
Yes. So literally section 2.5, the executive director shall appoint the CRA secretary. And then it goes on to say the rest of the information there.
Okay, we have a friendly amendment to the resolution. Can someone move the amendment? That's the way we do it, Madam Clerk. We have to have someone to move the amendment.
We need a motion and a second, and then a call for the vote on the amendment.
So
Okay,
yeah, I made a motion, so I need a second.
okay.
second.
I need a second for the amendment.
I second.
Okay, second by Board Member Titus. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Board Member Williams,
Yes.
Board Member Pygott,
Yes.
Board Member Taylor,
Yes.
Board Member Titus,
Yes.
Chairwoman Russell.
Yes.
Motion on the amendment passes by 5-0 vote.
Okay, now we need to go back to the original resolution. It was moved in second already, so can we take the vote on that? Madam Clerk?
Board Member Puckett,
Yes.
Board Member Taylor,
Yes.
Board Member Titus,
Yes.
Board Member Williams,
Yes.
Chairwoman Russell.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
And thank you, Madam Clerk, for bringing that to our attention as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, that's it for the resolutions.
I would also like to thank for making the meetings a regularly scheduled meeting. So that's pretty awesome.
Okay. Now we're going to go to discussions and presentations by our new interim director. He has a lot of good things to talk to us about tonight. You're going to make the budget the first one? Okay, let's go.
Under item 1, it's a review of FY 2021 and 2022 budget, the proposed budget. Behind that, you have an outline of the budget moving forward into the new fiscal year for your review. And it is my understanding with the budget administrator that we have until September to review and make any necessary amendments that are needed to this budget. So this is for us to review, make our decisions, and when we come back for our next CRA meeting, we can make some solid determinations on what we'd like to see moving forward with the budget.
Okay, anyone have any questions that you would like for him to work on tonight before they bring it back to us? Any concerns? Yes, go ahead, Board Member Packard. You have some concerns that you would like for?
Yes. First, I would like to get a clear accounting of where we currently are in terms of our budget. I do not see that in there, or also the income. So Say
that again.
I would like to get a clear indication of how much we have currently in the bank, and also what is our anticipated income. Right now, this document only shows expenses, unless someone can point me to where it details what money we have. All I see is expenses here.
Yes.
So that's number one. Is that, and yeah, so that's number one. Is that in this document do we have here today?
Mr. Anthony, when we met, you had given me a document that had the proposed income as part of the budget. And what Board Member Packard is saying is all he's seeing here is expense. He doesn't see any revenue. And you made reference earlier about 3 times that we would have about 3 million in the bank by the end of the year.
Bob Anathan, budget, not quite that. What I did say is you're going to have $1.7 million in the bank as of the end of the fiscal year, my forecast, and you're going to get another $1.3 million in revenue as of prior to December 31st. So if you're saying end of the year calendar, yes, you're right. If you're saying end of the year fiscal year, you're a little premature.
Okay.
But long story short, to answer the question, based on the forecast of where we think the money is going to be spent this year, there should be $1.7 million in the bank at the end of the fiscal year, September 30th. And we know with 100% certainty what your revenue is going to be for next year, which is 1.3 million, or to be more specific, $1,303,462. So to put it in scale, as I said before, and I'll repeat it, I apologize, you really have $3 million available to you to spend next year. You have no requirement to maintain a fund balance. So the whole thing could be spent if you so choose.
All right, so number one, if we can have that information, that will be very helpful in consideration in writing somewhere, or even on this budget document. What is our current income, just like other budgets, income and expenditures. The second thing, am I seeing this correctly that we are going to spend about 1.7 million? Is that what I'm seeing?
This is proposed from the finance, or from the department.
It's from the CRA. This was Mr. Gay's work. I sat there and took notes. But at the end of the day, this does reflect Mr. Gay's thoughts for next year.
So, so Mr. Gay, you had anticipated us spending $1.7 million? Mm.
Gregory Gay, CRA. As we were doing our analysis of the expenditures, there are certain expenditures that were going to basically be carried over from the previous year, but we did see some opportunities within the budget to look at funding for supportive housing, supporting particular housing projects that were being developed as we speak. We wanted to be able to put funding in place so that we can basically move those projects on a little bit quicker. So we did do some additional allocations. You may recognize on one of the pages that speaks to the expenditures under the line item of other uses, approximately $750,000 was going to be outlined for that particular area. And that is basically to support new development of housing within the CRA area. So that is a significant increase. That's a budget item that was not there in previous years. And as we look to expand the facade improvement program, we were hoping that we will be able to do that. We are instituting other programs that have been rolled over from previous years as it relates to streetscape improvements and other matters. So at the end of the day, yes, we're looking at an expenditure of $1.7 million.
All right, so my first concern is that that's a lot of money to spend, a heck of a lot of money to spend, knowing that we end the year off with 1.7 million, and we anticipate have 1.3, so that means we will end next year with just 1.3. Usually with many CRAs that I've seen, they have built up a significant pool of money to where they can do major projects. And what has been our practice here in this city, we spent before we got money. And now that we got money, we're spending majority of it. And we have to change that if we want to make significant progress and change in this city. So I would like a more conservative budget that would spend no more than 50% at the very, very, very max, but usually 30% so that we can anticipate build up to a project and really see some major changes happen. Second of all, could you explain this residential development assistance? Because this is so far the biggest expense to date of this CRA, and to have it all in this residential development assistance, which I haven't heard of before today, is pretty significant. So, and that's, yeah, almost half of what we're proposing for next year. So could you go into detail on what does residential development assistance actually entail?
Through the chair.
Yes, sir.
Residential development assistance is basically where we're looking at putting CRA dollars into developments that are actually being proposed and online. So as it relates to what we see with other CRAs, they have made a significant investment and made at least a 20 to 25% investment into the development of new projects coming into the area. We would like to see our CRA pretty much follow that same pattern. There is some infill housing projects that are online to be developed within the city of Opa-locka. And we would like to see how the CRA can be a partner within that development. Therefore, the CRA will have some skin in the game and be able to dictate what type of development will occur on these particular properties. These are properties that are held by other entities. In some cases, they're privately held. In some cases, they may be held by another governmental agency. But it gives the CRA an opportunity to partner up and do, in essence, what would be considered a joint venture partnership with these particular developments.
So, well, as you mentioned, Chair Russell, I think that it's important that we see that in writing in terms of what would this program entail, what does the criteria entail, what's the approval process, what are we looking at before we allocate such a significant amount. So before this budget is passed, I hope that we can have several meetings to see what that program actually looks like. What are the anticipated projects that we will be funding, and how that will actually impact our city. I still think that is a significant amount of money. So definitely would like to see about conversations about whether or not we want to make a significant investment. But at first, we need to at least see what it is you're proposing that we do. The other two things that I think is very important for us as a city in really moving this city forward to attract developers, to show that we're doing something, is a development of our historic city hall. Number one, I think that will be the number one most significant draw to this city in terms of what it can provide, from cultural to just image. We can finally take a good picture of our city hall that can be on our websites. We can host events, and we can just do so much with that facility in place. So I think that is one of the most significant showcasing of this city moving forward. And I would like to see what it looks like in terms of investing in that. And then two, our infrastructure. We can bring a lot of developments in here, but what are we doing to make sure those developments have roads they can drive down without being flooded, sidewalks, landscaping and streetscaping around the community with new lights and things of that nature, and poles with banners, all those things that will build our city. So if you can explain how this budget contributes to those, that would be very helpful. And also balance out the dollar figure that we're investing into this residential development and this professional services that I see here for and infrastructure and our city hall actually getting renovated.
I think what Board Member Paget basically is saying is that along with this budget, you really need to have, I know when I do budgets, I have a dollar amount, but I also have a written explanation as to what that budget item is. And you have to give a little narrative as to what that budget item is, what it's going to be spent for. And then when we have our meetings with Mr. DeLeon, when we have our meetings with him, he could also help us understand and explain them as well. So this is a proposed budget. I know he's taking notes for the concerns that we have, because I have quite a few on myself. But I think if we could go back and do a budget narrative along with the dollar amount, and I think I've kind of asked for that before, that would help answer some of the questions that the board members have. Because I see other professional services here, and I see $214,000. I don't know what other professional services is. I know we have an attorney, we have to do an audit or accountant, and then we have other professional services. And then when I go down, I see accounting and auditing, $10,000. That's a lot of money for, who's the auditing firm? Are we going to use the same one that the city is using? Are we going to use our own? Those are things that should be in the budget narrative so that it would give us more direction as to where we're going, and it would help us. I think it would cut out some of the questions, not all of them, but it would cut out some of the questions. And also, also to Board Member Paget's concerns, he talked about infrastructure, but we want to make sure as a CRA that we're not taking on projects that the city already have going on. Because one thing that I've been cautioned about is make sure that the CRA dollars are not being used to supplant city projects. So we want to make sure that, you know, we can partner with the city or with the county in doing certain things, but we don't want to take on city projects like we're doing them, and stick to that plan that we have. I brought it to the attention of staff that, does the city have a master plan? In this budget, we have a parks plan, we have a downtown master plan, we have a downtown master plan, we have a CRA plan update, the parks master plan. And do all of those plans that we are planning, are they in line with the city's master plan? Because if the city doesn't have an updated master plan and we're paying, having all of these plans done, and then the city comes back and these plans don't line up with the plan, the overall master plan of the city, you know, we've wasted money. So I have a concern with doing so many plans. We need to use the ones that we got and make sure that whatever projects that we're doing, that they line up with that plan that CRA, I think we just did a downtown master plan. And we need to use the CRA plan that we have and make sure that we are following that, so that we don't have to go back in 6 months and say that, you know, we just did something off the top of our heads. So those concerns that Board Member Packard have are my concerns as well, but to make sure that we're not supplanting city projects.
Chairwoman Russell.
Yes, ma'am.
I do echo the sentiments that I do think that does need to be a focus on our historic city hall. My question is, does that fall under the historic preservation line item? Yes, okay. And so again, just focusing on that would be great, because I do think that is the centerpiece and the hub of what's going to bring us back to our greatness. However, I would like to talk about the residential development assistance. And this is a question to you, Chairwoman Russell. In your years of experience being the chairwoman of the board, have we partnered with other developers before to assist them? Because if we haven't, I don't see a reason why we shouldn't start, like why we should start. But I want to know, is this something that we've never done before? Because if we haven't done before, we need to do something different.
Yes, we've never partnered with developers before, because we've really never had monies. You know, our first project was the facade program, and as you can see, it took us 2 years to even get that up and going. So in moving forward, partnering with developers in the CRA area, I think is essential, because, you know, we are, as I think somebody said, I think that's Mr. Gay's word, we have some skin in the game, and then we could tell the developer, I think it was Vice Chair Chris Davis said, you know, we could give incentives. We could, you know, lay on the line what we as a CRA would like to see in our area. So I think it's a good thing as well in moving forward. But it would help us if they had a narrative.
Yes.
A budget narrative to explain these things, and to, even if it's a one pager, especially for something with that amount of money attached to it, and because it will be the first time. We don't want it to be like the facade program that we have to keep going back and forth during every meeting. If everything is outlined clearly, I think it's something that we really could, we could tip our hats off to.
Thank you.
Before I go to you, and you know, I have a senior moment every now and then, so I have to get it while I can. I brought to the attention of Mr. Anthony and also our interim director that myself and Commissioner Titus on this board are not a part of the commission. So there is insurance that they pay. I think it's risk insurance that covers the board. And I don't think that they have myself and Commissioner Titus covered under that insurance. And we're paying for it through the CRA, and we should be covered. I know for my organization, I buy insurance and my board members are covered. And I ask staff to please, sir, look at that for myself and Commissioner Titus to make sure that we are covered under that insurance. I can't think of the name. Like I say, I'm having a senior moment, but I just thought about it again, that we really need to be, you all need to make sure that myself and Commissioner Titus is covered under that board insurance. And can we have a response back by next week as to where we are with that? Because we've been on this board now for several years. And if anything happens to us, we're not covered. You all are, but we're not.
Through the chair, I would like to bring up our budget administrator, Bob Anthony.
I had my own senior moment. You did ask, I did ask our risk manager. She said she would get back to me, and I didn't follow up. So you'll get an answer tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
My error.
I've asked several times to make sure that we are covered under the insurance. And especially if the CRA is paying a big chunk of it, we should be covered. Go ahead, Board Member Taylor. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, in regards to the residential development assistance, I like the program, and the program is explained because they provided documentation on it. Because it's talking about future development, us having a seat at the table and being able to, like our previous director said, have skin in the game. So I like the program because, like Vice Mayor said, we can't keep doing the same thing expecting different results. So this allows the city to actually move forward with development and allowing us to dictate how we want development done in our city. So I just wanted to show my support for that line item.
Okay. Can you explain to me, it says park amenities. What is park amenities?
The line item under park amenities is a part of financing that we can provide for parks and recreation for the improvement of amenities if the board so chooses for us to assist in improving our park system.
Okay. Board members know that this is a proposed budget. So we have until when to make, Mr. Anthony, and I know that the commission, that you all are off in the month of August. Go ahead.
Sorry. The budget, your budget really should be adopted by 30th September.
30th of September?
Yes, ma'am, the latest.
Okay. Okay. I also have a question. Why are the state fees, why are they so elevated now? Why are they so much? state and county
Yeah, I was
administrative
going to
fees.
say, the majority of what you're looking at are county fees. The county fees are based on 1.5% of whatever their TIF contribution is for the year. Your TIF contribution grows rather sharply year to year because of the way the mathematics work. So as your TIF revenue from the county grows up rather sharply, you'll see that fee, the 1.5% will also rise proportionally.
Okay. Anyone else have questions? I have quite a few. I'll write them all down and give them to, I got quite a few. I'll write them all down. In the interest of time, I don't want to go through each one of them. Anyone else have any that you want to highlight?
We have until when to adopt this budget?
He said that we have until September the 30th. And so we would have one more meeting. And if you all decide not to have a meeting in August and follow the commission pattern. See everybody shaking their head.
I didn't hear it. Say it again.
I said that you all don't meet in the month of August.
Okay.
So we would have one more meeting, and that would be in September, where we would be able to adopt the budget. So if we decide not to have a meeting in August, we need to meet with Mr. Delane and make sure we have a good, strong budget when we meet in September.
The only thing, as I said, I would like to make sure that we have information and narrative, because I know we hear things during our meetings, but we represent the public, and they should be able to look at these documents, look at what's coming, look at our CRA, and see that these projects are online. This is the reason why we're allocating this money for these projects.
Yes.
And if they want to apply for this residential development program, they clearly see what it is, what's the criteria, and how to go about it. These things need to be posted online so that when we make these decisions, other people can look at them and follow through. So if we can just get that information. And then the other thing is having some type of timeline for implementation. We have, if we look at this budget for this past year, I think it's out of $1 million that we allocated, only 350 was expended or forecasted to be expended. So that is a significant amount, over 60% of the funding not being spent within this past year. We want to make sure that if we're going to allocate these funds, let's have timelines in place to make sure these projects get done, so that we know that during these meetings, okay, by January, if this isn't done, okay, Mr. Director, could you tell us, give us an update on this? So we can also get those timelines. That would be very helpful, so that we are clear, the public is clear about what projects are happening, and also if there are delays, when we should hear about why those delays happen. Thank you, Madam.
I asked Mr. Delane to give us, I called it like a little work order, and it would have timelines on it as to when he think the projects will be moving, how they'll be moving, and if there's a delay, that he will come back and let us know. So we've already discussed that. And he knows that that's something, as a matter of fact, he brought it to my attention, that that's something that the board has been very adamant about. So he wants to make sure that he's giving us timelines that we can look at and be realistic if it's not going to happen. And also, I saw something on here for, I wanted to ask Mr. Anthony, why do we have the trust account as a negative?
Bob Addington again. The trust account, this is the only time I've ever seen that terminology used. It really becomes a contingency when you have revenue for the year and you're going to spend less than the full amount of revenue. The differential is just put into trust account, and if it's not spent at the end of the year, it just goes to the bottom line, becomes part of your fund balance. So look at, it says trust, but really look at it as a contingency for other purposes you may choose to spend money during the course of the year.
Okay. Okay. I would also like to bring to the board's attention, we need to consider whether or not we're going to get our own, have our own independent audit done, or are we going to continue using the audit firm, let it be audited along with the city's audit? I don't know whether they can be done separate. I see you shaking your head. Can somebody help us out?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry to come back in. The state has passed a set of statutes that required now be a separate one. You could use the same firm, but it really has to be a totally standalone audit as opposed to the way it's done now.
Okay. Okay. So when is our audit due? Because we need to consider whether we're going to use the city's auditor or we're going to get our own.
I think, if I can answer that as politely as I can, even though it'll be a separate audit, I think the city has got to get its own records in order first. The city is on a schedule right now where they're shooting to get the FY20 audit done in December, and then the FY21 audit done by June of next year. So your audit, unfortunately, because it's embedded in the city records right now, can be audited separately, but until the city gets caught up in its own record keeping, I don't think you can do your audit for FY20 or FY21 until it's consistent, at least time-wise, with the city audits. I mean, to directly answer your question, your audit in theory should be done probably by March. Your audit for the current fiscal year, which ends on September 30th, should be done by March 31st. But because you're embedded in the city records and they're still in a catch-up mode, it's going to have to slide a little bit in terms of when it's actually done.
So we as a CRA, that would be another finding for us on our financials, because we're not timely with the audits.
I don't know that you're subject to the same things. Where it might have shown up, where it did show up in the past is in terms of the operational audit. The operational audit is now being looked at in terms of what we've done over the last 2 years, but I'm not sure that that's going to be a finding out of the operational audit. Again, that's just my opinion.
Okay, can you find out, please? And is there any kind of way that we could fast forward the CRA's audit? Because we don't have a whole lot to audit, so, you know, and that $10,000 for audit for us, we don't, you know, we haven't had that many transactions.
Understand that $10,000 is for 2 audits. It's for the FY20 and the FY21.
That's why we need a budget narrative.
Ma'am?
That's why we need a budget narrative. Because
Yes,
then
ma'am.
we would know that that $10,000 is not for 1 year.
Well, I think
We
there
would
was,
know that it was for 2 years.
I think there was an attachment page that possibly you didn't get, which did identify it was for 2 years.
Through the chair, we'll be able to provide that information to you in short order, so you have everything for your records.
Okay. All right, because we can go on about the budget for a long time, so we can move to the next item.
Okay, the next item in the discussion packet is I2, and it's on the discussion of the Innovation District. Behind that, you have a letter presented from the CRA staff, which elaborates on the rationale behind Innovation District. A little background behind that. Planning Community Development in conjunction with the OCRA has looked at opportunities to improve certain areas of the CRA, within the CRA boundaries. And in that review, one of the areas of focus was the Opa-locka Commerce area, which is primarily a heavy industrial area between 22nd Avenue, 27th Avenue, south of 151st, and north of Alibaba Avenue. With that in mind, the staff has looked at potential new uses to increase the level of usage in the area. looking at the creation of a STEM/tech hub to be in this area to enhance the uses that are already there. This is actually a part of the CRA plan to improve areas that are underrepresented or underutilized, and it's well in line with the CRA plan to do so in order to carry out its mission to eliminate slum and blight. So if you have a chance to take a quick review of the letter, you'll see, pretty much what's the basis behind it and why we deem it necessary to improve the area, as well as mentioning the fact that we're looking at providing career and educational development opportunities with this space.
Okay, the next. Excuse me, anyone have any questions? You can move. Yes.
Through the chair.
Yes.
I want to say, I think this is great, just skimming over. I haven't read it word for word, but just taking that specific area and turning it into a technology district really makes sense because this is the wave of the future. So thank you, Mr. Delane, for having that vision. And we hope that as a board, we can make sure we have that come into fruition.
Next one, please.
We'll be moving on to the next item, which is I3, and it's the discussion of 3P joint venture partner residential development supplemental funding options. Behind that, I pretty much drafted up a memo that elaborates on the purpose of this item. And as you reviewed the budget, this is actually the written component to why we deem it necessary for the $750,000 for the opportunities for partnership with developers coming into our city and the CRA area. One of the issues that we've had with developers coming into the city is the fact that the lack of resources and the lack of opportunities for the CRA to be able to state how we can assist. And this document here, as well as the proposed budget amendment, would be able to allow for us to make those determinations, make those deals, so we can actually get that development in the CRA.
Any questions? If you, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney, for proposing this project. Ever since I've started here on this dais, I've had countless conversations with people and developers that want to come into the community. And the first thing they ask is, what does the city offer? And I have not been able to tell them what we can offer because we didn't have anything. So I'm looking forward to seeing the details of this plan. I know there are similar concepts in the city of North Miami, in the city of Miami, and a few others that have these programs that are in place across the county. So I'm looking forward to seeing how we develop it. There's some really good models already out there. So just want to see what that looks like so that we can spur development in our cities. Thank you.
Okay, we'll quickly move on to the next item. And this is I4, incentives for development, impact fee reduction, grants, and other incentive opportunities of the CRA. This is pretty much almost a complement to the previous item in terms of working with developers that are coming into Opa-locka. Again, with the financing that we just previously stated, this is coming up with those actual concepts that we can work with developers on. I have listed here 5 potential examples that the CRA can look at. One of them is actually already in play with the Small Business Facade Improvement Program as one of those incentive solutions for developers, whether they're existing or we're looking to bring in new development to the CRA area. So this clearly states out some of the ideas that we're looking at, but it's not an exhaustive list. We're still reviewing other options, but having that earmarked amount allows us to begin that conversation of how we can assist development moving into the CRA area as well as the city.
Very good, very good. Next item.
Item I5 speaks on the status of facade improvement program that we are partnered with the OLCDC. And as you can see, the line items are listed out 1 through 5, 1 through 6, technically, that states the status of each particular project. To date, we have 3 projects that are already underway and nearing completion. 2 have already submitted their 2 have already submitted paperwork for their reimbursement. There is 1 that just received their fee waiver on the last CRA meeting, which is Tracy Tompkins.
Mhm.
And then the last one, item number 5, is the item that we just discussed today, that we're requesting the other fee waiver.
I see on the bottom here, it says signs have been posted at all sites and photos have been sent. I didn't see the signs. I know I was out of town for a few days, but can I ride by and see these signs tonight? You saw them? Everybody's laughing, but
They're the
I haven't seen
smallest
the
little
sign.
signs that you will ever see. They're like this big. So you look, you wouldn't even be able to tell what it's for or what it means. It's just,
So with that being said, that's a concern that has been raised by the board. We've definitely looked at options to increase the funding. Therefore, the next installation of the facade improvement program will make an emphasis on new signage moving forward.
Well,
so
I don't think that's gonna fly. Because we're talking about a project that we're doing now. And I specifically spoke to the CRA executive director, and he said that we could get some signs. So can you please, I'll call him or you can, go back to him and said that he said to the chair that we could get some signs. So can we please get some signs that we could see?
Madam Chairwoman, question to the executive director of the budget. Where is the budget for signage in this proposed 2021 budget?
That is a decision the board can decide on how what that
Let me
number
find it
is.
right now.
You know, that's what I want to know. Is it in the budget right now that
No.
you're
It is
It is
proposed
currently
to
not in
us?
the budget.
No,
I mean, at this point in time,
No.
this is just a template that was previously designed, and we are well within our wherewithal to make that decision moving forward, how we want to
Okay.
position our budget.
So do we need a motion to direct the executive director to include appropriate budget for signage in this proposed, or is this something that you're going to do automatically? Because this is something that I've heard on this day since I've been here, and it's not in the budget. I know that some of those signs can run about $100 to $250, but mostly I think it's $170 because that's how much our campaign signs basically cost. So I know it's cheaper than that to do. And what we're looking at is probably 10 projects that may require some signage. So we're talking about $2,500 max can take care of this. So is that something we need to direct, or is that something that
I
will
think
just
we could give
happen?
a directive, board member Paget, we could give a directive to the director, and because the executive director already stated to me that we could buy signs, we have money in this year's budget that we're not spending. So can
Exactly.
you please give us an update within a week
So
as to,
let me make a motion. Let's
Go
make a
ahead.
motion
Okay.
to direct the CRA director to amend the budget to include signage
This
um,
year's budget.
this year and next year's
Okay.
budget, to include signage. 'Cause you're right, we got $600,000 we didn't use, and you're trying to tell me we couldn't use $1,000 to get some good signs? So, yes, so I would like to make a motion to amend this year's and next year's budget to include funding for, what's the size of the signs? Anyone know?
2x8. I think they're are they 2x8 size? They
You're right, 'cause they
got
long.
one right over here.
I'll direct that to the CRA consultant, Mr. Gregory.
That was a nice one.
Members of the board, I know that there's information that was presented to you all at the last meeting, looking at different types of signs. And I know that you want something very representative that can be seen from a great distance, and you don't have to come up to it with a micro, with a glass to just kind of see what the sign says. So if you're looking at a sign that's probably around 4 feet by 8 feet, which is commonly what is used by most municipalities for advertising their projects, those signs can average anywhere from $500 to $1,000 per sign.
No.
That's the estimates that we've seen thus far. Now, we haven't done our due diligence to see our full investigation as to what those signs actually cost. But that's the cost for manufacturing and installation that we've seen thus far. We will get that information and bring it back before you so that you will have that information very accurately.
Well, Board Member Paget, since you're putting a proposal on the floor, put a dollar amount to it. What do you think the dollar amount should be?
Good, but $2,000.
$2,000? Okay.
All
And
right,
we'll
so
keep it within the $2,000. Five signs?
exactly. 2,500. We'll amend the budget to include $2,500 to increase the size of signage.
Yes.
You say 5,000?
Yes, for 5 signs.
I don't know how many we need, but I would prefer to have a budget because if we're talking about $750,000 that we're going to put in residential development projects, which I'm already seeing a few projects coming up. We're going to be funding them, then you're talking about quite a few signs. So we're going to put up 750,000. Then we should have an appropriate number of signage. So I ideally would like staff to come up with a budget that includes signage as a part of all of these projects. That's ideally what I think should be the case, is that it's included in every one of these projects, so that we know what it is, because that's how every other city has it. And I think it actually, 4x8 is a pretty wide sign, like they're narrow. So it's more, I think what Madam Chair said, 2x8 is actually probably the right size because they're narrow going up.
Yes. I think that's a good starting point. And if you make you're making the motion and somebody second it, we'll pass it. And if it's not enough money, then they can come back and we'll have signage up by next meeting.
Well,
They'll make them
Through
for
the
you.
chair, I would like to just offer and suggest that we look at doing a budget amendment for this year for the facade improvement projects for this fiscal year going out, and then making those budget changes as we got the proposed budget in front of you now, adding that as a budget item and looking at it from all of the projects that we look at implementing through the next fiscal year, because just suggesting another 2,500 probably will not address the amount of projects that we would be looking at doing. So I would like to recommend that you do a budget amendment of 2,500 for this year for the facade improvement program, and then for us to look at making changes to our budget to be proposed for next year.
How about this? I would like to make a motion to direct the CRA director to budget for a minimum of a 2x8 size sign for all CRA sponsored projects. So you can, for this year's budget, and also to be included in future budgets.
Motion has been made. Can we get someone to second it?
Second.
Second by Board Member Taylor. Any more discussion? Roll call. Signage is on the way.
Board Member Taylor,
Yes.
Board Member Titus,
Yes.
Board Member Williams,
Yes.
Board Member Pikett,
Yes.
Chairwoman Russell.
Hallelujah.
Motion passes 5-0.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Chairwoman Russell,
Yes, ma'am.
just wanted to point out, advertising, is that considered the marketing and branding piece?
No, advertising is every time we have a meeting, they have to advertise the meeting on the newspaper.
Okay, because I don't see any line item for marketing. Is that?
That can be
something-
added.
So can I make an?
No, when they do the budget, all they gotta do is put another line item.
Well,
Take
okay.
take some of these things out here that they have nothing to and just put in
Some of
marketing.
these plans, yes.
Yes, just
Um,
add marketing to the
Yeah,
budget.
because I think, I mean, moving forward, or at least if we're trying to, advertise and make sure that we're, really moving into a new era of CRA, we need to make sure that that branding and marketing piece is
Yes,
going to work for us.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and Mrs. Delane, you could kind of bring us back something as to what that would look like, along with a dollar amount, with the budget narrative.
Exactly, will do. And the last item for the discussions is I-6, speaking to the status of Stantec on the downtown master plan. I had asked for the consultant to attend, however, he had a prior obligation, so he wasn't able to attend. However, he provided a narrative just outlining where they are on the status of the CRA master plan. And in our weekly conversations, we spoke last week, and they're nearing completion of the master plan, which should be done within a couple of weeks. And we've already designated August 10th for the presentation of that master plan.
August 10th, they don't want to work.
Chairwoman Russell, as an employee of Miami-Dade County Public Schools, those dates in August, I would appreciate if we can follow the commission schedule and release August. At least for me, I know that I probably will not be attending because of it's such a heavy back-to-school month for me. Thank you.
Is it possible, or you think that'll be too long to push it to September?
As indicated on the, that we indicated as staff, it's a tentative date. We looked at a bunch of factors. However, we can honor the Board Member Williams' request, as well as any others that would like to solidify another date. That was just something that staff had earmarked to ensure that we keep in line with setting timelines and due dates for expected projects. So if you would like to push that back into September, we could solidify a date and move back into September.
I think those that sit on the commission, I think they would really, that would help them out, give them some more time to work. That's it? Okay, Mr. Delane, you did good your first night.
To the chair, one quick question. I think Vice Mayor asked it, but I didn't hear the answer. The historic preservation, is that City Hall? I think she
Yes.
asked the question, but was it?
Yes, he said yes.
He said yes, okay.
Yes, that's historical City Hall. But I thought we had set aside
That's-
$350,000.
For City Hall.
Mr. Gate, it was 250?
And can we get, Madam
125?
Madam Chair?
Okay.
What does that entail? All right, 250, what does that actually do?
When they get us the budget narrative for these items, it would tell us what each one of what that $250,000 entails. Right, Mr. Anthony and Mr. Delane? A budget narrative will be put to the budget and it will outline what that 250, 100, 60,000, whatever it entails, right?
That is correct.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, Mr. Gay says that it will be outlined, Board Member Paget.
And if the board does so wish, I would like to defer to Mr. Gage for his explanation on the item.
Yeah, when the budget was set previously to make an allocation toward the historic city hall, it was basically prior to it going through its assessment. At that time, it was tentatively budgeted for approximately $750,000 to complete the restoration of historic city hall. This was approximately 2 years ago. The CRA was going to contribute about 20%, which came to about 175,000, 150 to 175,000, if my memory serves me correct. Since that time, the city has embarked on an assessment of the project itself. The assessment has increased that allocation amount. And there are some funding sources that may be able to address all of the restoration needs of historic city hall. Now, with that being said, there is another historic property on that site, which is the historic fire station, which has not been addressed as it relates to improvements and the like. It has been suggested and proffered that possibly the CRA could look at funding that as its historic preservation project. Just as the historic city hall building is going through an assessment, the fire station is also going through an assessment to make a determination how much funding it would take to restore that particular facility. So we're probably about a good month and a half, 2 months away from hopefully finding out what that number will be. So we will have to come back before you. And basically, we put the 250,000 in as a placeholder for now, so that we would at least have a budgeted amount that you could consider for approval. If at some point in time that amount is increased, we would have to do a budget amendment. But if not, once this budget is approved and the 250 meets the assessment value, we will be able to proceed with the improvement of the historic fire station as a part of the overall historic property complex improvement. That is our intentions at this time, and we will have that reflected within the budget so that you will have a better understanding.
All right, sounds good. We definitely want to see more. But one of the things that just came to mind when we're talking about this restoration, I don't know if we should also make an allocation in this budget on how it's going to be programmed. So it's one thing to have the facilities developed, but usually you'll develop these facilities for a particular purpose. With people that are going to operate it, with all the amenities. They may need lights, stage lights. They need all type of stuff. Storage area. They may need quite a few things. So if it gets restored, I would love for us to be able to immediately launch it too at the same time. So it's restored, launched. What is the plan to launch it? And can we allocate funds in this budget to develop what that looks like? I would love professionals that can tie it into, let's say, the Greater Miami Visitors Bureau's plan for historic architecture in Miami-Dade County and these large events that they have with Miami-Dade County and South Florida to attract people. Can someone think through the potential that this site can have and what it can draw people to this city, and make sure that our renovations is in alignment with that potential, and that once it's done, we can have a nice, whatever it is, happen, and not just have a pretty building and then decide that we just need to do something. So that's something that I would love to see.
Mr. Delane have something he want to comment on concerning what you just said.
Through the chair, historic City Hall is very vital to the city. It is our icon. It is a historic structure that pretty much marked this place as historically the place to be. With that being said, the CRA staff has looked at opportunities to assist the city in the rehabilitation of that building. I know, me personally, I've had conversations with Mr. Austin in regards to what can the CRA, partner on in terms of, minor projects to rehabilitate the building, as well as activate the site. And that's something I've had conversations with Parks in, because in order to rehabilitate historic City Hall, you also have to have some type of energy or some type of passion behind why is this building in this current state and what's being done. That will be able to push us to be more, expedite the process in rehabilitating that building. With that being said, in my conversation with Mr. Austin, I itemized items that need to be completed or what can be done, and in a dollar amount of what it will take to do it, and a timeline of how soon it'll take for us to get it completed. This is something that I know is well within the wishes of the board, and it is definitely within the purview of the CRA staff to get completed. I will have another meeting with Mr. Austin next week. The date is to be confirmed at a later time. I will provide that in my director's report in my next CRA meeting, and I'll also provide a memo prior to that to the board so they can understand what we're looking at, what the options are. So coming up on the next CRA meeting, if you so choose, that can be an item to be added to the budget for us moving forward to make that improvement. Because as I mentioned before, it is our icon and it is essentially our heartbeat. And it's probably priority number one to make sure that that particular parcel is back online.
Amazing, much respect, and thank you for that. But you mentioned the renovation, right? That was just renovations?
Just renovation. What we want to do is at least reactivate the site. We want to be able to clean up the appearance. So as of right now, with decorative fencing with the signage that shows that either the city or the CRA is in unison in completing this project, we're looking at opportunities to pressure wash and paint the building with at least a top coat to improve the physical visibility of the building, as well as securing the entrance ways to the building with more decorative decorative access points. We want to make sure that when people come to our city, when they look at that building, even though it's still under construction, they don't see it in its dilapidated state. It at least looks presentable, because there's historic properties all over the country that sometimes have that old rustic appearance to it. However, we want to at least enhance our building so it looks like progress is being made, not where it's still sitting in its current state, where you'll have vegetation growing and broken items on the building. We want to at least improve its image so we can start to market it, but as well as bring attention to, we're still working on this building, but it will be finished in very short order.
Okay, the point that I was making, the last part, was about the activation of the site. Like what's going to be there? What are we going to do with the site so that once those renovations that you said are done, immediately we know how it's going to be activated? Because other thing that I would hate is that we get it done and then it's just sitting there. So can we make some type of allocation to make sure that once it's done, what you're saying, you're going to follow through on all those things, that we also know what's going to be there, and that is in alignment with the county, the Greater Miami Visitors Bureaus, all those historic visitor people things, that they also are working with whatever consultant group that's going to be in there. I know it should, I doubt it should be the city or the CRA that's in there. Hopefully not. But some type of institution that can give that attraction that we all want to see in the city. So
I think.
that's what I'm asking. So what that looks
respond.
like.
Let me respond. In short, a board member Paget, I think what you're talking about falls more on the city side than it would the CRA, because the city is the one that really owns the building. So the CRA is just coming to partner with the city in the renovation. So that whole, what you're talking about, I think that falls more on the city side. We can partner, but that would fall more on the city side.
And to piggyback to the chairwoman's point, yes, that is correct that we are assisting in the rehabilitation of historic City Hall. However, there are opportunities for the CRA to partner with other groups in terms of activation of the site. And when I mean activation of the site, knowing that the building currently is not operable, we're looking to operate on either the parking lot or the open green on the side for community engaging events and activities to bring some traction and some energy around it. So while we're going through the process of rehabilitating the building, we at least have some traction and, you know, individuals that are there seeing it, enjoying it in the meanwhile. So the question will start to be asked, when will we finish? Oh, I can't, you know, wait until this building is done, and then the possibilities open up.
Yes.
With those possibilities, I know we've had conversations with the Curtis Mansion, which is actually a building that is reminiscent of historic City Hall. The floor print is literally the same, and their operation hosts a slew of events, weddings, corporate events, you know, all those things that activate that site, and it is a beautiful venue. I've actually had them come out, the Curtis Mansion group actually come out and do a walkthrough of historic City Hall, so they can kind of elaborate on the trials and tribulations that they went through in rehabilitating that building and programming that building and giving us, you know, kind of a realistic view of what it takes to bring something of such historic merit back, and then how can you program it to be a, yeah, for lack of a better phrase, an icon, you know, something that we can celebrate, being the center of our city. These are the things that we've looked at, the conversations that we've had. I've had Mr. Austin come out there with me on that walkthrough, and we pretty much have an understanding of what we would like to see. But the reality is, what do we need to do moving forward to actually get the site back online is where we're at right now. But the possibilities are endless. We've had the walkthrough. I've actually asked them to come back out so the board members could have an opportunity to have that same walkthrough and have those same conversations, so you all could visualize what me and Mr. Austin saw, and be inspired to, this can be, you know, an excellent destination as well as a keynote for our city moving forward.
Okay, great. We're almost done. I know we're tired, but I would like for Mr. Delane to close. As we close, we had a very productive meeting. I think he had a week or so ago, and I want him to share that with the board so that you will know some of the things that Mr. Delane is working on as well.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Rich. So over the past couple of weeks, one of the tasks I've been charged with and something I've been very passionate about is bringing in developers to kind of have a firsthand account of the city, as well as, you know, areas that we're looking to be prime for new development. Looking at the options that we have, I brought them here to look at primarily the Magnolia North area as well as the downtown area. One of those developers in particular is through Coastal Construction, and one of their partners is Jonathan Goma, and he's actually very interested in development opportunities in our city. For those who aren't familiar, Jonathan Goma has played in the NFL, but also grew up in Miami and grew up in South Florida, and he understands
Coral Gables.
Coral Gables.
Coconut Grove.
The Grove, excuse me. But he has an understanding of a historical African-American community and what it'll take to develop some adequate housing for our community. And see, I didn't mention affordable, I said adequate housing. That's something that we're looking to improve in this community as we're looking to move the city forward. I say all that to say he's not the only one. We've had other interests from other developers, and we're looking to continue those conversations and grow those opportunities and grow that list of developers and moving the city forward. I'm excited. They're excited as well. I've actually had the opportunity to introduce them to developers already in the CRA working right now in Magnolia North, which is Mr. Ario Lundy. And Mr. Lundy's project sells itself. It shows that this is what can be built in the city. And the negative stigma that the city has had for so long is slowly being erased. And being erased in due process because we're doing the right things and in the right direction to bring in the right type of attention, the right energy. And I'm just excited to continue moving down this path because we see that progress is coming, change is coming, and we're doing all the right things to make sure that that happens.
I wanted Mr. Delane to share that with you. I was very, very excited. I was excited that Jonathan Vilma and Coastal Construction, that they were so excited to be coming into Opa-locka to see, you know, what can we develop? What can we do? You know, where do you all have, you know, what do you want to see in your city that we could come and help you develop? So also, we've talked to Mr. Delane about having, Mr. Gay normally have it every year, a developers forum, but in a different type of way that the developers that are interested, let them come and give their presentations, not we so much give the let them come and show us what they have to offer the city of Opa-locka. We know what we have to offer. And so I'm excited about what direction that we're going in, and to Mr. Gay for even bringing Mr. Delane on board. I think we're moving in the right direction. There are a few kinks that we need to get straightened out so that we as a board can move forward without any drawbacks. And I think the community is going to be very proud of what we as a CRA is going to be bringing to them in the near future. I think with some signage, they're going to be very excited. So anything else for Mr. Delane before we adjourn?
Through the chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Just want to say I did earlier say something positive, but I just wanted to say to Mr. Delane, your first night on the dais, you not only kicked the door down, but you took everybody's name. And so amazing job. Just thank you for the outline of the agenda. I think this is, you know, something that is really streamlined that I was able to follow through this meeting. But then all of your proposed plan memos so that we can see forward-thinking movement and where you want to take the CRA and Opa-locka. So thank you for this, and just because we see that movement is going to happen. So thank you again, and welcome.
I just want to say to the chair.
Yes.
To Mr. Delane, welcome to the team. Look forward to working with you.
Well, Mr. Delane, you've set you, Mr. Gay, y'all, you had him set a real high bar tonight, so you can't come down. You're on the mountaintop, can't come down now, okay? Anything else? If not, motion to adjourn. Move it?
Move it.
All right, good night, everybody. Thank you all for your time.